My name is Evan Radisic. I'm the Managing Director of the Cloud Software Association. I've got Matt Irving here with me from WP Engine. He's the manager of global partner operations over there, and he's going to be taking us through the 7-stage bow tie funnel. Sounds super sexy and engaging, but this little strategy was responsible for kind of the 50% year-over-year growth over there, with well over 5,000 agency partners now, which is incredible. Yeah. I've got some burning questions myself to, how you manage 5,000 partners and compensate them, send them payments to onboarding, training. Like, there's so much there. And I think we're probably going to have a lot of those questions from the audience. So if you do have a question, post it in the comments, and I'll get Matt to answer it during or after. We'll squeeze it in there. We'll try to make it as interactive as possible. And if you're a executive member of the CSA, we're going to do a speaker lounge after this session. So it's a separate Zoom call. We'll just have a little more in-depth kind of, thing with Matt ask, more specific questions, I guess. And if you're not a CSA executive member, join us in the CSA/join. But without further ado, I want to introduce Matt. Matt, do a quick intro on yourself. And let's dig in, and I'll keep track of the questions, and we'll try to make it engaging. But let's get going.
Well, Evan, thank you so much for the invite. We've had some great conversations around this, and I know for all folks that are involved in partner operations, this is a near and dear topic. How do you measure, operate, report on all things across your partner programs? Just as a bit of a background, so I'm the lucky manager of the partner programs and strategy group at WP Engine, and we get to serve WordPress's largest ecosystem of agencies, technology partners, developers, designers, for the whole purpose of helping these businesses unlock creativity. And so I've got a few team members here on the call as well. None of this would be possible without our team, without the great partnership that we have with WordPress as a whole and all of our partners. So it is a joy just to be stewards of such a large ecosystem. So yeah, I've been in this role for the last 2 years. And really the whole goal of the talk is maybe to give you a little bit of war stories, kind of where we got to, and then a framework that I hope would be helpful as you think about your own programs. So Evan, anything you want to cover before diving in?
No, I think we're good. I mean, I think what we discussed, we had a chat yesterday, what did we call it? It was cute to hero? No, cute program to amazing. I can't remember. We had a tagline. It was so good. I was like, we got to mention that. But I mean, you guys went from, because I mean, the toughest part is obviously like getting that buy-in and getting the whole organization lined up towards, looking at the same goal, and, looking at, this little program that could or that should into a 5,000 flourishing ecosystem of partners bringing in revenue and a whole bunch of other stuff. How do you go from cute to that, right? That's the meat of it. But I say we just dig in. I'd love to find out kind of what the starting point, like why did you decide to do this, and then where did you get started, right?
Yeah, so I think it was cute to critical, because you were like the master of alliteration. So yeah, 3 years ago, the agency partner program started out as a whole experiment, a marketing program specifically around. We have all these third parties that are referring us business and really starting to try to get more involved in customer engagements. And through a team who faithfully looked at it, built it from the ground up, started looking at all the things that you kind of would start with of where do you interview sales reps, like who are you typically working with, what are your deals look like, starting to talk to CX reps to understand what those customer conversations are and onboarding or even in churn. And really through that, started building out a marketing program. What does it look like to spotlight wins? What does it look like to show off customers? What does it look like to go invest and go tell those stories out into the broader market? And over the last 3 years, it's really just been scaling that. How do we scale from spreadsheets to systems? How do we look at manumation into programs? And all the while, the whole critical engine of all this of being a partner-centric, partner-first organization. And so I've got like just a few slides just to kind of maybe act as a way to steer the conversation. And so let me put that on. So is this showing up okay?
Yeah. No, we got you. It's not full screen, but whatever.
Always a joy of a demo, right?
So, that's all right.
Yeah, I think it might be on my side. Let's see.
Yeah, hit that.
Cool. There we go. So yeah, well, I think the TLDR, the too long didn't read of this whole presentation, and just our big learning in all this. You want to make it easy, you want to make it motivating for all, and you want to make it accessible for most. Our core operating principle for the agency partner program and for our broader partner programs in general is how do we give our third parties as many SKUs, as many third parties with as little friction as possible. And so that's kind of the whole thing that we look at around like what are the friction points in the customer acquisition process or demand gen process? What are the friction processes in the sales process? What are ways that we can come alongside our partners to show off their services? And our program started off where the whole idea came from was really our affiliate program. So we had a basic look of our partners as really kind of a demand gen funnel. Who are people that have our ideal customer, and where could we really kind of be a bigger fit together? So that was the origination of the CUTE program. And this kind of story will kind of take you through kind of really where we became a critical component. So I called this presentation, how do we build a flywheel? And this comes from Jim Collins' great book, Flywheel, by the same name. And we also have Flywheel within the WP Engine portfolio as well. But a flywheel in general is really just disciplined actions compounding over time into superior results. And so we typically think a lot of this partner experience just getting better and better as incremental disciplined actions to go lead out to those big pieces. And all of this kind of started from really just kind of these three questions. What are we as a technology provider, WP Engine, what are we good at? What do we want to own? And then where do we work with others? And I think the critical insight that our team had at the beginning of the program was really, what is that customer life cycle? And then where do partners kind of overlap on that overall customer life cycle? So if you think about it, you have affiliates, demand generation, but they're probably not going to be involved in the sale. They're probably not going to be involved in the implementation. So like overall, you're talking about a demand generation function. Then maybe on the flip side, or like the implementation or servicing existing customers, you may have implementation partners. So think of like systems integrators. They're connecting all the dots between your system, core systems, all these different things. And then you've got a litany of third parties in the middle who have customers that they can bring you. They have services that they can bring into your customer set, and they're involved in and throughout and alongside your sales cycle. And so that third component was a really big one of where do we work with third parties and where can we work with them along the customer journey? So for our affiliates, like what's content that we could put out in the market and go attract customers together? For our solution partners, what are services that we can supply or that our third parties can supply on top of our platform and being able to work together? And I think the critical piece behind this is, really where are you better and best together? Where's that customer value just completely clear? And that really being the motivation for the whole life cycle of a partner, not only just being able to be aligned to you and be an alliance, but like, what does it look like to really be a deep partner? And so
we had that conversation like just before around, how do you figure out, exactly how to work with partners? Like, where do you want to be, which ones to say no to, which ones to say yes to, and then what does a yes mean? Like, what's the journey you want to take them through? And it's very much a different answer for an affiliate versus a reseller or a strategic partner, right? So I love, it's the simplicity of it. It's like, where do you want to work with them, as opposed to like, how do you want to onboard them? Like, you're asking a more humane kind of question of like, well, if I was to just work with a partner, regardless of what state, like, how would I want to work with them, right? That kind of forces you to answer those questions, which is kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think like all along the way, like how are you better together? Like that answer has to be so clear and evident from a customer perspective because that motivates both parties. Like that's really what's going to get this. And I think like that's a great level if you're a startup that's looking to partner with a big platform, or if you're a big platform looking to evaluate other companies that you're working together. Like what is that customer service profile value overlap? Like where does that Venn diagram the brightest? And that's a great motivator for how invested are we going to be in this? Like, is this just going to be referral relationships? Is this going to be deep integrations? If you're talking about a technology partner type of use case, all in between, it's a question to really go align on. And again, like just as a little bit deeper of an area, my team would tell you my favorite word or favorite kind of principle behind this is like, where are we maniacal on value? Like what is a win? How is it distinct? What's the pattern? Like, what is it that you can do over and over? So Evan, your point, like, I think that's a big piece of around like, where's the customer winning? Where are you seeing them really show off like where you're really better together? And so the meat of this presentation is really just around this funnel that we put together as we were trying to not only understand our overall program, but really how are we going to actually operate it? And so in the very beginning, when I came over about 2 years ago, one of our core metrics that we had looked at were really signed or really just approved partners. And so we knew exactly how many approved partners that we were bringing in. We knew about how many partners were working on our deals. And so we had a good idea of like where those things were. But it started kind of getting into some questions around like, well, how do we go from 1,500 partners to 10,000? How do we know like what partners are active? And what does active mean? And what all does that look like? And so we started looking at it from the marketing funnel side and our demand gen funnel of what kind of content is coming in and driving partners. Like where's the constraint in us finding more approved partners? And one of the things that we started looking at was really kind of this middle part of the funnel, like who is kind of like in the realm that we're aware of that they download our white papers, they talk to us in chat, we see them at conferences, but we really haven't really had like a chance to work together yet. Then we saw like what's happening on the funnel level of like how many people are filling out applications and where are they becoming partners in terms of like signed terms of service. But then like how do you get them active? Like just belonging to the parties is one other thing. So we started really kind of looking at what are the different programs that would unlock a signed partner into their first deal. And then what would it look like for us to turn sessions into applications? And so we found that this was a really helpful way of being able to identify where are the bulk of our partners, who are the people that are really active with us, who are the people that are new to us, and then how do we get more new people? And so that was kind of the genesis of really kind of what this framework really looked like. And then it really started kind of expanding it. So one of the things that we look at in our overall marketing programs and our overall sales alignment was what is kind of that shared language. So our reps would say, hey, we have a lot of third parties that we work with. We have a lot of agencies who send us deals over the fence. But what is it that kind of keeps them from being a partner? So we would ask those kind of questions. Then really kind of finding out, well, is it a commission issue? Is it an enablement issue? Is it just too much of a hassle issue? Like, what is it that would really allow a third party to really buy in with us? And so in working with our sales teams, like we started building out kind of the right side of the funnel first of who are partners who have been approved, they've been around the program, but they really haven't gotten to that first transaction. And so let's go build out programs. Let's go talk to our reps. Let's go focus our networks really, really closely on getting as many people out of this area, this activation stage and onboarding into enablement. And then we started seeing, well, okay, well, now we have a lot of more people. So how do we get more deals from them? Like what would that look like to go get different SKUs, different ways of working with us? So then we started looking at, well, what are the different buying motions? Someone can refer to us, they can resell us, they can self-serve, they can work with a rep. So we started actually kind of looking at what are the typical engagement patterns of our partners and then seeing and educating them on different ways that they could work with us. And so if you can get them not only working with you, but also standardizing on you, that really got into an advocacy funnel. And so that allowed us to really then start looking at, well, who are the big advocates with us and how do we go attract more of those people? So that then took us over to the left side of the funnel of what kind of campaigns really would go attract third parties that are doing e-com projects that would love the content of e-com projects that are working well with us. What are use cases that are specific to corporate sites that we're winning with and showing off with our third parties that they have built great services on top of us. We're being able to win, and we could go showcase that back out to the market. So those are kind of a few ways that we've looked at in terms of not only acquiring partners, but understanding a partner's overall adoption with us, and then how are we like advocating it more and more.
So here's a question. So you almost kind of proved it out with what you had, a handful, I don't know how many successful partners in a few different levels, and said, these are the ones, like this is our profile. We want more of these, right? So you kind of proved it out with a few, and then you kind of reverse engineered it and say, well, in order to get more of these, what's a ideal partner MQL? Like what kind of marketing material do we have to create to attract this type of profile? So you didn't start from scratch of like, let's create the marketing material and like just get the net. Like you kind of proved it out with a few, which is kind of, you hear that theme all the time. It's like, hey, like don't worry about getting like 300 partners, like worry about getting like 5 good ones, 10 good ones, prove it out, and then go back to like, how can you replicate that, right? So that's kind of what it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a big piece. Kevin Kelly has a really famous article called like 100 true fans. And the whole idea behind it is like, if you can get 100 people maniacally focused on you, that love your product, love your service, a lot of things will start kind of solving itself. It's a good way of evaluating product market fit. And so, yeah, for something like this, where it all started at the very beginning, we're just even spreadsheets. Like, who are third parties that are working with our sellers? Cool. What kind of customers are coming out of those engagements? Awesome. Which ones are winning and which ones are getting closed lost? What drives pipeline versus like what drives revenue? On the ones that drive revenue, like where do we see retention versus like where do we see churn? So those are kind of a couple of the metrics that if you are looking at it from an outcomes perspective, like, are you trying to go build not only just everybody, but you're trying to go find the right third parties where you're the best fit for? And I think like one thing that's been very helpful about this funnel is we've thought about the acquisition side of this almost acts as like kind of a pre-qualification for third parties to see if they're going to be a good fit with you. Because you may educate them on like, hey, these are all the areas where you could win with us. These are all the areas where your services could align with WordPress. But it may not be the best fit for every solution, every project, every fit. We want to be that for most, but there just may not be solutions where it's going to make the most sense. So it even helps to even kind of pre-qualify out those third parties that you want them, you want to stay top of mind with them, but you're not really going to go through all of the effort on both sides to really go ink a specific partnership.
No, that's interesting. I think this is good. I want to just keep going. I got a few questions here that are kind of coming up, but obviously the burning one is like, you didn't just start with this with like a team of 20 and like threw everybody at it. Like it was spreadsheets to better spreadsheets to more, CRM to like maybe at some point squeeze in like what kind of tools and how big of a team you were working with at each stage. I think that would be really helpful. It's like, this was a 2-person, at this point we were 6, 8, whatever.
Yeah. So in the very genesis of it, this was a marketing program that was operated by a single person, basically over the course of the first year was probably just even trying to understand like, where do third parties work with us and what does this look like? And then the evolution of it was then maybe from like a team of 1 to like a team of around 3, where then it's like, okay, so we're starting to see third parties. Cool. Like, what does it look like? Where do they start interacting with our customer lifecycle? Where are they part of our affiliate program as well as our agency partner program? what do they need? What do they want? What can we provide them in terms of enablement? Where can we help in terms of a co-sell process? And again, I think that maps back earlier to the beginning of this conversation of like, what's your customer journey? On maybe like if you're thinking about this in terms of a table, what's your customer journey on a row? And then if you think about the next row, like where do third parties interact with your customers? And then where are you okay with that? Where are you okay actually working with someone at that stage? And so I think over time, we understood that more third parties were referring us business as a traditional affiliate. Then we started seeing more people who wanted to be involved in the sales process. Then we started finding more people who wanted to be involved in the sales process, but not really the closing process. Then you started seeing people in the sales process who also wanted to implement, and then people who wanted to implement as well as to serve, and then start finding specialization. And so I think the key learning, I think, within about the first year of the program was, where does that third party journey intersect with the customer lifecycle? And then where could we be the most helpful across that customer journey? As you think about a partner that wanted to go wide on the customer journey, as well as partners that have services that go very deep on specific steps. And so as they started really thinking about that, that's then where the team did a great job of like, where could we better align this? Well, now like in year 2, we could start introducing a partner portal here of like, we need to get enablement material to you. We need to get the ability to do deal registration. We need to have the ability for you to pull, logos and campaigns and things like that that could help you help address a lot of the same questions that this team was getting. And so a lot of it has really just been like over time of us understanding what do our partners need for the specific stage that they're trying to support with a customer, and then really finding like what are ways to scale that. Like maybe it is a Dropbox type of contract at the beginning, which then turns into a DocuSign, which then is embedded in our partner portal. And so today we have a great team that's specifically focused to run kind of a couple of areas. So we have a lead that just thinks about partner enablement and is now building out a team to think through like what are all the different pieces of enablement that we can give, distributed through our portal, available at our conferences, thought leadership that we can put out in the market, all those things. Partner systems, what are the interactions between our partner portal, our Salesforce instance, our customer records? How do we make sure all those things are in sync and not fighting each other? Again, like how do we help service our partners with as little friction as possible? Our partner incentives lead, thinking about like what are the different commission pieces, market development funds, lead distribution, like what are all those things we could do to delight our partners? And then our partner experience person. So how do we make sure that our commitment phase, the area where our partner goes through the application process in their first 90 days of onboarding, like what does that look like? How does that feel? How does that feel for like a big entity? How does that feel for a freelancer? And effectively, how do we democratize all the power of WordPress for a third party and making that just as easy, as simple as possible? I think for most partner operations people, like the thing that you're trying to optimize for is pattern recognition with your third parties. When they have a customer, do they immediately think about you? Where do their services align with you? And how much pain or strain is going to be involved in that partnership? And so like those are kind of our focus areas. So on our existing team, so partner enablement, partner incentives, partner systems, and partner experience. And so we're a mighty team of 6 with our leadership supporting about 5,000 partners. And then we support our existing sales teams, our marketing teams, and effectively like the partner operations team. I often like to kind of talk about this as like we're the nerve center of third parties. So what are we learning from sales that we can feed back in the CX org? What are things that we're seeing both on the revenue and retention side that we can feed back out to the financial and business operations teams to make sure that we're all really seeing how do we equip as many third parties with as many SKUs with as little bit of friction? Because our ultimate goal is really how do we become the partner of choice for third parties that are looking at WordPress?
Yeah. So here's a question from Kogan Kenwar. Hope I'm saying that name right. And I think you get the first part of the question right on the amount of partners, which is 5,000 plus. But The other question is the success metrics, and I'm going to take the question a little further and say, like, are there success metrics for each funnel, from MQL to, the tying the knot or onboarding the partner to first lead, second lead, third lead, or is it an overall kind of success metric at the end? And how many are we talking 5,000 to 3,000 to 1,000 to 200 to, so two-part question.
Yeah. So at the very whole, what does net revenue, net impact look like from a customer perspective? Like, are our customers winning, and are they continuing to win? And that means, like, are they being supported on the right plans? Are they growing within our ecosystem? So that would be the ultimate lagging indicator of this whole funnel, right? And so the then piece is then, like, we think about, and you see kind of the bottom of each of these stages, like, what are the lagging indicators that we're looking at? Are we driving more MQLs, more leads that are interested in learning more about us, out of the awareness funnel and into the acquisition funnel? So if you think about it, traditional business development, trying to find partners who can be partners for you, kind of lives in this world, the acquisition activation. So how many people are we, how many third parties are we being able to engage with that are then wanting to take the next step of learning about us, that are taking the next step of wanting to try out a proof of concept or even a first deal together? And then how do they kind of, like, move around that funnel? I think traditionally most people or most programs kind of think about it just in terms of, like, the revenue side, but the revenue side, like, is truly a lagging indicator. You may not be able to know exactly what went into each deal. You may not be able to know, like, what the discounting rule was, and you might have had the right rep with the wrong customer, or the right customer with the wrong plan in front of them. Like, there's a lot of things in a sales cycle that are just kind of the incomplete piece of it. And so for us, as the partner operations group, we definitely support the marketing organization. We support our sales organization. We live within an overall revenue business unit center. But the core metric for us is seeing, like, what is net revenue impact, and then what is a third party's book of business look like? Is it growing? Is it shrinking? What is aggregate book of business in terms of what's third party revenue as opposed to direct revenue? Like, is that piece getting bigger, smaller? Is that getting stable? Is it getting more volatile? So those are a few ways that we kind of think about lagging indicators of revenue, leading indicators of, let's call it, progress to revenue.
What are you using to kind of track some of the stuff on the revenue side? Are you guys with, like, a specific CRM, like a same CRM the sales uses? You're not using anything for yourself?
Yeah, so everything flows in through Salesforce, and then we use like a really strong BI tool called Looker as a way to kind of stitch together, like, what are we seeing in the customer experience side, our billing platform, and Salesforce. So we can have a pretty good indicator of, like, what was the overall life cycle of a customer, a life cycle of partners, life cycle of aggregate deals, a life cycle all the way throughout. So if you imagine, like, our Looker dashboards look very much at this funnel of how many campaigns do we have out that are driving X amount of engagements, that are driving X amount of proofs of concept, X amount of agencies, X amount of partners on one buying motion, so on and so forth. And then running effectively a program and project roadmap around this exact same thing. What are the programs and products or projects at the awareness phase that we're going to go do to go find more third parties that are great fits for us? Or how do we get better awareness on reactivation campaigns of third parties who have been with us for a while but might have gone dormant? What's kind of the learning? What's the big insight? So that's kind of the area that we're always kind of thinking about, of where are we constantly improving? What are the hypotheses that we have at each stage? What can we prove, disprove to go unlock that revenue and partner and customer growth?
Nice. I think the activation piece of it is obviously quite critical. But what's really curious to me is that, MQL piece of it, like what kind of content are you guys focusing on creating to kind of get that ideal partner? Like, are you working with marketing to create that? Are you doing it on like how often does it change? And just like how close is it to a traditional kind of marketing formula where it's like, hey, we're going to do a webinar, we're going to do a a study, we're going to measure those clicks, we're going to try to get some content that's engaging and collect those email, like how much are you deviating from the traditional model that had like focusing on the partner kind of slice of it?
Yeah. So one of the benefits of the genesis of our program is we came out of the marketing org, and we were kind of birthed in that area. Marketing at WP Engine has always been like a strong incubator of lots of cool initiatives and programs that, like our M&A practice came out of it, business development, and in our partner programs in general. On the partner side, yeah, it's a lot of those things. So we're surveying partners to find out what are trends of people who are active and not active. Webinars, like what are different use cases that we can highlight of where partners win. We try to have a pretty good mix of like, it's WP Engine folks, it's third parties speaking to other third parties. We do this a lot with our summits. So our customers being able to talk to our third parties being able to talk amongst each other, us being able to be a curator. I think that's honestly like where you see the beauty of open source, right? Open source is about democratizing the power of technology, where maybe historically has not been in a traditional on-prem system or software. And so from a program's perspective, like that's a lot of what we think about from an activation of what are those pieces of content. So like one that's really, really popular is a tool that our third parties can use for speed testing. And so they're able to look at, is your site faster or slower on WordPress? And what all does that look like? It's kind of a page right out of the book of like HubSpot Marketing Grader. Like I think of that is a great piece of content that it's not just telling how great you are, or like where you're the best fit for third parties, but it's actually giving a third party a tool to them to go take out to their customer. Like your campaigns are very reflective of how confident you are in that story that you're going to be better together with that third party. So those are a lot of the campaigns that we typically think of as what's content that a third party could use, what stories about our third parties where they're winning, what are stories and case studies where customers are winning with third parties or even just winning in WordPress. So that's a lot of what kind of fills the awareness and acquisition activation piece of it.
That's awesome. That's great. The other question I have here from Alexander, and I don't know if I'm doing this justice, is which partners do you know to pay attention to, right? Like I guess it's on that kind of activation piece. And what was really interesting when I was kind of reading through this is it's not just about activating them into like, okay, great, you want to be a partner. Here's maybe a sandbox or something to play around with. Here's that partner account or something to kind of give you an ability to kind of get a little sticky with the product. And then it's after that there's like the second kind of activation phase where it's like, okay, like they're all in. Let's really give them some structured training, give them a free account, get some of the more partner perks that would that they would get in front of a customer with. How do you know which ones to pay attention? Which ones are those, right? Like, is there a clear kind of indicator like, okay, these guys are in? Is it when they bring in a customer referral, or is there specific indicators that you set out ahead of time to say, hey, if they illustrate these 5 traits in this qualification, this enablement piece, we need to put a person on it. Somebody needs to, go all in, right? Like, what are those?
Yeah. So I think this is always something that we're trying to improve on. If you think about like, what's the overall sequence of events of a partner journey with us? I think the principle that we try to operate is how do you lower the bar as low as you can on consumption and let that drive adoption. So like you talked about this of how do we give a third party a development environment so that a developer can get hands on keyboard and maybe they're not familiar with WordPress, but how do you get them into a playground where they can check out the sandbox, they can try out a different use case, they can see what it looks like, and they can start seeing like where would their solution kind of fit with this, what do their specialties look like. So at very top of the funnel, it's things like how do we introduce in dev accounts? How do we introduce themes? How do we showcase different pieces of content where third parties are building services on us. And that's really here at like the activation stage, right? If you think about it, like at the awareness phase, like we're really just talking about WordPress. Like if you're a third party interested in WordPress, let's see if we can at least get you interested in like WordPress for the enterprise. Cool. So now we're like in the acquisition phase. So now you're a third party that is interested in WordPress in the enterprise. Let's tell you a little bit about where other agencies are getting in. And would you like to learn a little bit more information around like where third parties are like you? So download a white paper, attend a webinar, boom, you're across like now in the activation world. And so in the education phase, like we're trying to get you to, we're opening up different ways for you to try out our themes. We're showing you different case studies. Like this is getting a little bit more specific and really where like other third parties are in. We see a lot of our webinars here. And you know, I think the message of this stage is who are other people like you as a third party? Maybe you're an e-com provider, maybe you're a search engine optimization specialist. Like where are those people winning with WordPress, and like what kind of customers? Like I do this in XYZ platform, XYZ company, but I haven't ever done this in WordPress. And so lowering the bar of someone to participate will drive adoption further down the world. And so as they go through each of those gates, those are signals to us that someone that is checking out our speed tool that wants to learn a little bit about WordPress in the enterprise, someone who's then signed up for an agency webinar, like that starts kind of putting people on our radar. And then we even start, you know, one-to-many outreach in this probably late stage acquisition, early stage, and throughout the stage of activation of, hey, what are you seeing? Is there anything that we could do to help? This is where chat works out really well. We have, you know, outbound representatives who can check in with folks as well. Our business development folks check in here, but it's really just trying to get like, try us out, participate in what this is going to look like. How do we do that in a very low barrier of entry way, and let that be the momentum builder over time that drives into further adoption. And then on the partner side, once they become a partner, maybe they've even gotten their first deal with us, and then they move over into becoming a partner. Those signals are really big too. Over on like, what are bits of campaigns that we can get you that you can put into your pay-per-click campaigns, your search engine optimization efforts? How can you go drive customers this way? We give our partners referral links. So maybe you don't even want to engage with a salesperson. Like we just want to see if we can be a resource for you. So we've reduced the barrier of entry for you even just getting to try us out on a sales engagement. And then for areas like for where they're participating, then it's like, well, where can we participate together? So maybe it's where can we work on a customer together? Like, you know, right now, you know, many third parties have really struggled with net new statements of work. And so a lot of agencies and a lot of third parties are looking at maintenance agreements of, we got that annual agreement that's coming back up. What's the service that we've delivered? What have we done for them lately? Like we're gonna have to go justify the statement of work again. And so that's really an opportunity for us to come alongside of like, what are different use cases within a large corporation? Like, let's go show off the success story and the communications group at company X to the legal department. Like, where can they work together? What would a better streamlined communication, or you know, a lower total cost of ownership look like for different departments and different use cases? And that's helping a third party really go not only win that maintenance agreement and also go deliver more customer value. But that's an area that we're starting to participate both on net new customers and the retention side. So now you have like two snowballs that are going of like, man, we can go deeper with our customers. We can go get more use cases. Those use cases help us to even go get new customers, so on and so forth. So I think the principle is, how do you lower the barrier of entry for someone to participate? To like, where do you show up, where you can participate with them, and making that a true partnership together. And the rest will sort itself out around like, who's interested in participating, who's not, how do you make it available to them, nurture campaigns to keep awareness up when that need is ready. But those are a few ways that we kind of think about activation across the funnel.
Yeah, I really like the fact that, at no point did you say, you asked, um, let's bring us to a customer, or like, what customer are you going to refer to us today or tomorrow? It's kind of that approach of what can we work on together to put, to make us stronger as a team, as opposed to like, I love they said, what have you done for me lately? And I mean, there as an agency, and I used to run agencies, like, the clients always, yeah, that was good, but what have you done for me lately, right? So you constantly have to like win the business over and over again, even though you won it technically last year. But the one thing that I think agencies get really annoyed at is when software companies and provide service providers come in and say, you know, bring us to your clients right off the bat. It's like, well, I think the indicator would be let's work on a campaign together that may shine a light into where we can work together on, and maybe open up some doors for both the companies. And if they say to yeah, like more likely to say yes to that. And if that actually, they invest some time, effort, resources into that, I would imagine that is a very strong indicator of like, okay, like there's something here. Let's see kind of where it goes, invest more time into it. And at that point, it usually becomes pretty clear that yes, they have customers, they're going to bring us forward, right?
Yeah.
I like that. The other question I had here that's kind of feeds into where you were saying about, getting those keyboards on the developer side. How much of this is applicable for I notice you do have a partner or a tech partner program as well. How much of this is applicable to integration partners? Like, are you leading that piece of it as well and taking them through this funnel, or does it look a little bit different?
So I think there are pieces that definitely align from a framework perspective of like you're with a technology partner. I was having a great conversation with one of our leads on that program. We're part of the overall partner group, and then we have our agency program, which is primarily a lot of this. But this framework would apply. I mean, you think of alliances, like who are people that are great for you to know about, but there's no mutual customer value. Like what you do and what they do is so far and disparate that you might serve the same customer, but making that story and like bringing that together is just going to be really difficult. I had a background in the past of for a financial services company, and we had we had partnerships that you would think of like credit monitoring and credit reporting, banking relationships, things like that. But we would always get commercial real estate people who are like, hey, we're trying to go fill out spaces in local malls with local businesses. Maybe there's a partnership there. And they just kept trying to work it out. And like, it was too far of a stretch to go make that work. And I think with technology partnerships, that's one of the pieces that a funnel like this or a framework like this is really helpful of around like, who are the people that are great for you to be aware of? You serve the same type of customers, but the value props are just not there. Great strategic alliance. Those are probably that are just going to stay in the activation education realm, in the realm of like strategic alliances. Who are people that you're going to work with together and like the value, like you're okay together. And so like maybe you do some referrals back and forth. Maybe there's some integrated campaigns. You do webinars. You do account mapping, like lead sharing, like things like that. And that's a good piece. And then I think as that Venn diagram, as we talked about earlier, like you're better together, that starts getting interesting around like, well, what are ways that we can sell together? What are ways that we can market together? What are conferences that we can be at together? And those wins really start snowballing of maybe we should be deeply integrated, like at an API level, at a core product level. Maybe we white label, gray label products within each other's offerings together. Maybe even at the full extent, you come together, like you do a merger and an acquisition. Like that's kind of the journey of, completely separate to, one. And so I think the funnel would work well around like, who are technology partners that you're aware of in the space? How do you help them just be aware of you? What's kind of the pre-qualification of like, how close can you get that Venn diagram together of like where you would work together? And then use mutual wins and customer stories to really drive it across. But I think if you're thinking about affiliates, if you're thinking about technology partners, if you're thinking about M&A, if you're even thinking about resellers and traditional like master agent relationships, obsession on the customer will help you drive around like how close could you get together of that customer lifecycle and your partner lifecycle being in lockstep together with this little bit of friction. That's going to be great advocates. The further that is apart or where that's not going to work, like you may just sit on the left side of it and you may just be better off just being aware of each other.
Nice. I've got one more question here that's kind of interesting, actually. I mean, you're talking about 6,000 partners and a staff of 6, I believe. How much of this, as you go through this process, how much is this automated? How much is it like one-on-one human interaction, right? I assume it gets, heavier in the human interaction as you go off that chain, but obviously you don't want to turn anybody off in the beginning either if it doesn't make sense. So can you just comment a little bit about like using automation in the cycle?
Yeah. So I'm so thankful to serve our team. Like I couldn't ask for a better partner operations team, and that's like round number one. Like equip your team to be as focused on your partner success as you've been mandated for, and you'll be able to move mountains. And so the single thread of it is we have a partner operations team that's answering questions on the far right side of the funnel, like commissions, deep dives into customer history, like things like that, as well as on the left side, if we have people that are going through campaigns, like we're helping provide feedback for what kind of landing pages are working. As I said earlier, like we're kind of that central nervous system getting back to the campaigns teams on what's effective for driving in net new third parties all the way to driving in greater adoption of our net new products and things like that. So from an automations perspective, you're exactly right. Like the left side of the funnel awareness phase is absolutely kind of one-to-many, lots of email automation, lots of list building, this is a very heavy marketing side of the equation. We then start getting into like the BD side of the equation here of getting to support our business development reps and like our strategic alliance folks. Like it's going to take a while to get really large third parties through, and so being able to support them. And then overall partner success, as I said, tickets one-to-one. We're always kind of thinking about what are ways that we can provide feedback loops into the rest of our customer success groups. What are the different ways that we align with our international groups as well? So we operate, almost 6,000 partners globally. And so if you think about it, like we're the majority of like our time from a one-to-one perspective are supporting our internal teams that are supporting our partners. So maybe another way to say that is like our core mission, our core job is to provide as much of a partner mindset throughout the organization as they deliver the partner experience, be it through a sales rep, a collections person, a marketing person, like any person in our organization. So that's really kind of where a lot of the effort goes. And, like any bit of operations, like we're constantly thinking about what's the constraint right now, and how would we be able to offer that with less friction, like for commissions, like do people have tax form issues? Like maybe there are email campaigns and webinars or white papers that we can do to get a resource out to someone who may have a tax question that gets asked over and over. So it's small things like that of around like, as we look at our tickets, we group them by category, and then we do kind of an audit process of around like, what are the things that we're answering over and over and over? Like, is there a way to automate it? Is there a way to make it easier? Like that's kind of the predisposition of like, are we attracting more third parties? Yes or no? Are we giving them more SKUs? Yes or no? Are we making it easier? Yes or no? Across the whole journey. That's kind of how we think about this from a continuous improvement perspective.
Nice. So yeah, we've got about 8 minutes here. So I've got one more question I want to ask you, and then if there's something else you want to go through, it'd be great to kind of wrap it up. But that advocacy piece, obviously everybody wants to be there. Like that seems to be the holy grail of it. 6,000 partners. And the question that comes up a lot, obviously, and I'm sure you get it too, is like how many do you need in the hopper to spit out this like ideal partner that that is engaging and is an advocate of the software? Like, can you comment a little bit on like how wide that net is? Like, how far is your like? Is it global? Are you guys working 24 hours a day? Like, how big is this giant net? And what does it come down to?
Yeah. So it's global. So we're often thinking about advocates in market and then advocates globally. And so we have divisions that are focused in regional markets. So who are going to be the advocates, our big winners in Europe, who are going to be our big market, our advocates in APAC, who are going to be our big advocates in North America. We're one of our core operating principles at WP Engine is like, how are we set up from a global operations perspective? And so, thankfully, we've got teams all around the world who we're just, as a partner operations group, constantly looking at how do we educate all of our agency-facing teams? What kind of questions are they getting? How do we make it easier? And then for the journey of advocacy, I think it's a couple of steps. Like one is, for all honesty, visibility, and that's where a framework like this is helpful, or of helping a market director or our leadership see like what's their current reach of third parties in that area. And in the same way we look at it on a global basis of how much third party revenue is percentage of our overall revenue, is that getting greater or worse, and by which market. We then kind of take that same financial kind of system and we break that down at a regional level of who are people that are just getting started, what's kind of that time to first deal, what's kind of that time to the second buying motion, like what are the average cycles there? And then how do we make that faster? What are breaking points? What are friction pieces? Like any global business, the friction pieces that we have and don't always correspond to each market. So, our APAC market is very different than our US market in terms of like how third parties consume us. But like, are we making it, again, easier for more third parties to try us out? Are we making it easier for us to equip them with more SKUs? Are we creating less friction? So I think the operating principles give us the visibility that we can take in market. And then the visibility pieces allow us to come alongside our sales teams, our business development teams, our third parties, to really see like how would we make it easier? What are ways that we can help our third parties win? What are areas that we're maybe even on our own way in terms of like where the constraint? And so do we have something overly burdensome in terms of process? Is something just not clear? Do we not have teams focused on certain things? So I think it's a lot of building out the muscle of the organization to think how would we be the choice of third parties and partners? And then secondly, like are we getting better or worse? And by what degree? And again, like I think this is, if anything, this whole framework was just built to just create kind of a shared language for sales that wasn't just revenue focused, for marketing that wasn't just lead or demand gen focused, like for finance of like, hey, we've got a good feeling about this partner. Like, hey, that's awesome. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
So shared language is everything.
Yeah, we had that conversation leading up to the webinar. Is like, jumping on that partner or potential partner call, and that they say, I'm really excited about this opportunity. Or like, I'm really jazzed up about what this relationship starts. So, well, that really means very different things to a lot of people. Like, is one too many coffees excited, or you have a potential lead that you want to give me excited, and it just gets everybody thinking about the same thing. And the other thing we talked about as well, Matt, is like, I think everybody knows a lot of these elements. Like, you have to train a partner, you have to qualify, you have to create content to, get that funnel in and qualify partners and all that kind of stuff. But what this kind of does, it kind of puts everything into perspective of like, okay, like here's my to-do list, and it kind of organizes your thoughts, right? So a lot of the, even the mastermind sessions that we have and some of the other webinars, it's like we have slices of this, but this kind of gives you that overall perspective of like, okay, here's the start of the journey, here's where you want to be, and here's all the work that you have to do in between, and here's where the teams come in. And that's why I kind of really like this. It's kind of like this like perfect to do diagram that gives you an overview of like what you need to build, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, it's great. So we only have another minute left or so. I don't see any more burning questions here. There's a few exec members here. We're going to join Matt at the speaker lounge right after this to dig a little deeper in a few questions that have come up. Again, if you're not an executive member, please join us at csa.com/join. For those of you that are, I will see you there in a few minutes. Matt, it's an absolute pleasure. I think we could be talking about this for a long time, and I think there's probably going to be a session coming up on this stuff soon. But yeah, thanks again for joining us, and I will talk to you in a bit.
For more great insights on partnerships and software, like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.